Danganronpa.
Danganronpa is a game franchise created and written by Kazutaka Kodaka, and as of recently, the game has been picking up steam on the online and real world, becoming more and more popular over time. The entirety of the series has had a major impact on my life and in return left a positive impact, and I thought since these games helped me get through many things, taught me many lessons, just overall helped me grow as a person, I would give an overview and review all the games in the franchise. I also thought it'd be a good idea since Danganronpa Decadence was coming out to the Nintendo Switch very soon, and also includes a new game called Danganronpa S. But before we begin, I will be looking at these games from mostly an objective lens without any bias, and not be comparing them until we reach the end of the video. I will also be rating the games out of 100 since I see that as the best way I can rate these games in general. And I will also be reviewing the games in order of release since that makes the most sense. Anyways, let's dive in. Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc takes place inside a Hope-Speaking Academy, an academy that houses teenagers that are best of the best and have these talents called Ultimates. 16 students of the 78th class enter the school under strange circumstances and encounter a bear called Monokuma. Monokuma announces that everyone is trapped inside a school, and if they want to escape, they would have to murder a fellow student and get away with it. In the series, motives are given out by Monokuma to encourage students to kill one another. During the downtimes that the motives are presented, there's these events called free time events that you can talk to other students and engage with them and learn more about their past as well. After a couple free time events, murder is usually committed and a body is found shortly after that the investigation begins. During the investigation, the protagonist, or you through their eyes, have to uncover as much as the evidence as possible in order to convict someone of murder. Once the investigation is done and over, we're off to the class trial. At the class trial, the spotless need to come together and find out who the blackened, otherwise known as the murderer, is. If they vote correctly, only the blackened gets punished. But if the spotless vote the wrong person, Monokuma punishes everyone besides the blackened, and the blackened gets to escape. The concept seems somewhat uncreative and repetitive of isolationist themes in many pieces of media, but the writing is able to carry the overall plot of the game. Just the characters, plot twists, and storytelling alone is able to keep the game fresh throughout the entire 20-30 hours of gameplay. I honestly cannot talk about this portion as it spoils most of the game, but expect several shocking moments and plot twists to take place, as this game keeps you questioning about what the outside world looks like, who the person that's responsible for creation of the killing game is, etc, etc. Now on to the characters. Makoto Naegi is the protagonist, and you'll be seeing the events unfold through his eyes. Makoto is known as the ultimate lucky student, with the talent being given to him due to being randomly selected to attend Hope-Speaking Academy as the ultimate lucky student. His character, to me at least, is very bland and generic cookie cutter character, but it works for the role that he serves in the game. Another example is Aoi Asahina. Her talent is the ultimate swimmer, and her character is generally bland, but she does have a few good moments in the story that make her character stand out, especially as her character is fleshed out like others. These are just some of the characters that you'll meet inside the game, but to just wrap up the character section, most of the characters are written well, and you'll definitely be picking favorites when going through the game. The investigations and class trials are a fun aspect of the game. It really makes you feel like you want to get down to the bottom of the case, especially when it's someone you like that dies, or just a very deep mystery that plays into the story. The class trials are definitely the peak of the game, and has pretty good gameplay mixed with solving a mystery. The OST is definitely up there, and it's pretty good, and features some absolute jammers. There is plenty of post-game content that can be found initially after completing the main game. You unlock a gallery with a bunch of artwork and beta models for characters. There's also an after-school mode that acts sort of like a mobile game, tiny tower type thing, by getting the students to do various tasks, and gives you a chance to have free time events that you otherwise couldn't complete in the main game. Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, as it stands, I would give a 75. I would probably give it a 78, maybe even an 80. But the game is overpriced in my opinion, due to many aspects of this game being dated, which is why I say wait to buy the game when it goes on sale. The game usually goes around for $7.99 when on sale, and so does the second game, which reminds me, we should be getting around to the second game right now. Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair starts at what seems like a beach, but then gets very confusing from there. It switches back to Hope-Speaking Academy and introduces you to the main protagonist, Hajime Hinata. While he's talking, the screen starts to get disoriented and fades black. The screen fades back in and we see a door, get closer to the door and open the door to see the rest of the cast. Everyone then realizes that the door is locked and they cannot leave. Everyone becomes concerned, and what seems like a rabbit named Usami comes out from under the desk and transports the fucking room to an island. Usami tells everyone that they have to get the Hope fragments to leave the island, and that the heart-throbbing school trip is now in place. After talking to the students, everyone goes back to the beach, and mostly everyone swims in the sea. The sky suddenly turns black, and you can hear Monokuma on the display set around the island. Everyone then heads off to Jabberwock Island to see the ruckus, and Monokuma's there and takes over the school trip and turns it into a killing game. Same rule applies from Trigger Happy Havoc. Once again, plot is carried by characters, plot twists, and writing, etc., but this time is amped up 100-fold. Once again, I can't get too deep into the discussion with the plot, but trust me when I say this game's writing, mysteries, and plot twists are really good. These elements really help you keep invested with the game and overall story that is being told. The free time events are also very well written and give characters a chance to be even more fleshed out. Speaking of which, the characters are very well made. Just as a few examples, Fuyuhiko Kuzurio, or known as the Ultimate Yakuza, is a very rude, cynical character at first and doesn't have a sense of humanity. You see this and think his character is very distasteful and not likable at all. You'd be in the right, but his character faces a major character arc, and his character becomes so much better throughout the story. Gundam Tanaka is known as the ultimate breeder. His character is more of an oddball, but usually one that most people can get behind. Obviously, there's the protagonist, Hajime Hinata, which his ultimate is unknown, which leads to very interesting moments in the plot that he plays into, which I will not delve deep into. Danganronpa 2's investigations are very much the same as the predecessor, but with new music. Same goes for the class trials, but some nice UI changes, and adds new minigames, which are fun and feels good to complete. Except for improved Hangman's Gambit. It can go fuck off. The OST, like its predecessor, is pretty good, but with even more jammers. Danganronpa 2 does have extra content after completing the game, and even unlocks after completing a chapter. The gallery returns, and the island mode is introduced, and behaves similarly like the school mode in Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. It also features a novel called Danganronpa If, which I won't be delving into. Overall, Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair is a very well made visual novel and worth the $20 USD price tag that it sells at, but is a steal at $7.99. To give it a rating, I would have to give it an 85 out of 100. This game has not aged in the slightest, and I highly recommend playing this game if you like Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. But make sure you play it after Trigger Happy Havoc, as it contains spoilers for the first game as well. Now on to the next game. Okay, where do I begin? Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls is a useless game for the series, and only serves to look into a major point of the series overall. This portion of the video will contain spoilers, so if you want to skip these, I suggest you just skip to the end of this portion where I give the rating, which will be timestamped in the description. Be ready? Okay. Ultra Despair Girls serves the role to show us what happens during the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history, which can be simplified to the tragedy. Which sounds pretty good in concept as it gives more foresight, but it isn't really much about the tragedy, and more about Makoto Nagi's sister Kamaru Nagi and Toku Furukawa from Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. The only positives that I would give this game is the character dynamic between Kamaru and Toku. It is very well made and personally improves Toku's character majorly. Also would like to mention the OST. The OST is also pretty decent, but it's lacking in some parts. Now moving on to the negatives. Firstly, the game isn't much a visual novel as most people would expect, but a shooter with half-baked but serviceable gameplay. The story that goes on isn't very good, and is just really derivative from everything else that goes on around the world. I will say this, the game and the series as a whole is a Japanese product, which is usually more into putting sexual situations in their game, which I don't mind, sometimes, as long as they do it correctly. But this just takes it too far and just personally makes me feel very conflicted, especially considering that the girls in the game are underage. And these are just some of the complaints that I have with the game. If I were to list them all down, we'd be here all day. The game as a whole is serviceable and doesn't really serve a purpose in the overall story of the franchise, but I highly recommend you skip over this game unless your friend pranks you and buys you the game, which you can tell them to jump out of a window. I'm going to give Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls a 55 out of 100. Now we move on to the last game, and probably my favorite game of all time. Final game in the series, and the one to wrap it all up. Of course, this part will not contain any spoilers, except for the ending of this portion, since I think it's really integral to rate this game. I'll remind you when we get there, but anyways, back to the video. Danganronpa V3 takes place inside the Ultimate Academy for Gifted Juveniles, something very different from Hope's Peak Academy, and in fact, this game is separated from the Hope's Peak arc, which was in a Danganronpa 3 anime. But anyways, back on topic. We start the game by meeting the protagonist, who this time is a female and shakes things up a little. Kaede Akamatsu is named the ultimate pianist, and her character dynamic with another character, which is soon introduced, is a well-written one, and I'm glad they included it. He falls out of a locker, and so does another person, which is Suichi Sayara, the ultimate detective. His character is also very well written. Not sure if you can notice a trend here, but most, if not all the characters in this game are very, very well written. Anyways though, they're introduced, and soon a bunch of giant robot machines come roaming the halls of the school, and they're basically trying to escape them. Their attempts have them meet with the rest of the cast in the gymnasium. 5 bears, or known as monocopes, come outside the robots and proceed to say vague things like they shouldn't be starting this early, etc., etc. They then get them into new clothes and flash them with a flashback light, which gives them memories of their ultimate characters as a whole. You start meeting the characters, and eventually everyone gathers back at the gymnasium to find Monokuma and the official announcement of the killing game. The same rules apply, but this time there's another rule that explicitly states that the killing game goes on until there are 2 people left. The story, characters, and plot is masterfully written in this game. The characters in this game, like I said before, are all written extremely well, except for a few exceptions, but other than that, you can almost find all the characters in this game likable. Ryoma Hoshi, known simply as the Ultimate Tennis Pro, is an extremely underrated character in the grand scheme of things. His backstory involves him and the Mafia basically killing everyone he's ever loved, and got revenge by killing the entire fucking Mafia. Needless to say, he was thrown in prison and basically lost all sense of hope. His character through free time events show how good of a person he is, and is just one of the characters that you can get really connected to on a personal level. Next character on the list is Rantaro Mami, which this character, needless to say, is also very underrated and is very well crafted. His backstory is very interesting, to me at least. His family, which was very wealthy, went on a boating trip, and once they got to land, Rantaro went on an adventure but had no clue his sister was following him. His little sister went missing, and Rantaro blamed himself for the event and went around the globe just to look for her. He gained his recognition and his talent from finding a remote village in the savannah, fighting off a disease that only affected the village. He helped research the rare disease that only affected the people in the village. Somewhere along the way, all of his sisters went missing, and he has been determined since to find them all. Overall, the characters are well thought out, and their backstories are even more well thought about. Not to mention their dialogue is very well written, and makes you connect with the characters more. Danganronpa V3's UI is a very welcome change and fits the entire aesthetic of the game. Again, the investigation remains the same, but the class trials? Oh lord, they make you want to cream in your pants. Bussin', for real, on God. Dude, fuck, I want to die. The minigames that are in them are very well made and feel very satisfying when you complete them. The class trials are a major improvement and add so much more to this game. The OST is amazing, and almost all of the songs in it are fucking jammers. Danganronpa V3 has a lot of post-game content after you complete the main game. You can access the casino, which is also in the main game and has really cool mini-games to it, an after-school mode in Danganronpa 1 and 2, a board game, and a forsaken hotel that we do not speak of. Now on to spoilers. If you don't want to hear about spoilers, I highly advise you skip this portion and skip straight to the rating, which will be timestamped and put in the description. Firstly, the first murder in the game is none other than Kaede, and now the protagonist role goes to Suichi, which was a major plot twist to throw at the beginning and really fucked me up.
No doubt about it. Well, this is as far as it goes. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get to the mastermind. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry, Rantaro. I'm sorry, Shuichi. You stayed silent this whole time because you realized it already, right? But you can't do that. It may be the end of me, but I want my wish to. I'm giving it to you, Shuichi. From now on, you're going to carry on my wish. You're going to protect everyone.
Kaede, I know what you want me to do. That's so cool. It's cool, but I understand. I'll do it. You can trust me. I won't let your wish go ungranted.
Next, we're going to skip all the way to the 5th chapter. Now at this point, everyone is slowly getting back their memories of the past and discovers the quote-unquote mastermind being none other than Kokichi, who takes Kaito hostage, and no one has a clue where Kokichi is exactly keeping Kaito. Might I add that they find out that they're the only people in existence that are living, and the outside world is completely fucked. So you expect them to be depressed and all that, and they come to the kitchen a couple days later to find out that Maki has a flashback light. Maki turns on the flashback light, and we soon realize that the Host Peak storyline arc is connected to V3 this entire time. This moment right here really set in stone what kind of game V3 was, and how this game is all about truth and lies rather than hope or despair like the rest of the series was. Anyways, we move on to the final chapter, and the final chapter is just a masterpiece and is a culmination of all the games over the years. The investigation actually has a timer, and this time it makes you feel like a sense of urgency because Kibo becomes the ultimate school shooter and is preparing to blow up the entire fucking place. Anyway, the mastermind is revealed in the trial and is proven to have killed Rantaro instead of Kaede, which turns out to be Tsumugi. I'm not going to tell you why, play the game for that information if you want to know. Also, another side note, Ryoma called her out in the first trial and was dead on right. Tsumugi's a whore, fuck you Tsumugi, you killed Rantaro, you fucking... Anyway, Tsumugi does this.
So who the hell are you? I'm me, no one else. What is this?
Huh? You know him, don't you? He was in the Jabberwock Island killing game.
I'm Hajime Hinata.
That's not what we mean! What are you doing?
And then she reveals that everything is fiction and that everything was a lie. Danganronpa is completely fake and all the characters were fake, including the V3 cast, which you're wondering, if they're there, how are they fake? Well, you see, the flashback memories are fake. They give away false memories. And Suichi and the other guys have been given false talents. They aren't who they are. They're some other person, and they signed up to be in this game. It's honestly really jaw-dropping watching this unfold. Anyways, though, the game usually ends on a side of hope, but this time it doesn't really end like that. It doesn't even end on a side of favoring despair. Instead, it ends with Suichi, Maki, Himiko, and Kibo making their own choice, and together end Danganronpa. And one of the best endings I've seen in a video game. This results in everyone dying and the game being over. But wait, there's more! I forgot the epilogue, you fucking moron. How could you forget, you fucking dumbass? Anyways, it turns out Suichi, Maki, and Himiko lived the ultimate school shooting due to Kibo and returned to the outside world and wants them to live. I know as well, they also only lived because the outside world wanted them to live, since Kibo was the connecting point to the outside world, technically. After a lot of talking and leaving the ending to interpretation whether it really was fiction or not, Danganronpa ends, and it ends on a really good note. Danganronpa V3 is a very, 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 very good game, and if I had to give it a rating, I would give it a 95 out of 100. The story, gameplay, characters, and OST are all incredible, and this game is very well made, and is definitely my favorite game of all time. Now let's get to the comparison. I'll keep this short, but I will not be including Ultra Despair Girls because fuck Ultra Despair Girls. Trigger Happy Havoc would get a 65 or a 70 due to feeling outdated compared to the other games in the series. Reeks of late PSP era game. Danganronpa 2 gets a 75 to an 80 just in comparison to V3. This game really pales in comparison to V3. V3 easily gets an 100 and by far takes the cake on the best game in the series with the best characters, best OST, story, and gameplay. To end this off, Danganronpa is one of my favorite game franchises of all time and has influenced my life for the better. I honestly feel like I wouldn't be who I am without this series today, and I have to thank Kodaka for that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later. Take care of yourselves, and as usual, have yourselves a damn good one.